So next we are going to participate together in a creative break facilitated and led by Street Poets Inc., a member organization of the Arts for Healing and Justice Network, which is based in LA. Street Poets Inc. is a nonprofit, poetry-based peacemaking organization dedicated to the creative process as a force for individual and community transformation. Their mission is to harness the healing power of poetry and music to save lives, create community, and transform culture. Through their work with at-risk and incarcerated youth, organizations, and community members, they build deep transformational relationships and awaken people to the power of their own creative gifts. So please join me in welcoming George and the other members of Street Poets who will be leading us through this very special creative break. Thank you, Street Poets, for joining us, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us here. It's great being here. I'm gonna pass it to my friend Frank so he can kick us off. So can you guys pull Frank up? Frank Escamilla.
I think I'm here.
Okay, there you go.
Hello? Hello? There I am. Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Escamilla. I am Director of School and Community Programming for Street Poets, Inc. And I'm here with George and my colleagues, George and Barbara Fant. And that was a great introduction to Street Poets. But and also, I just want to add on a little bit to that to give it some context. We've been around for more than 20 years, and we use poetry as a vehicle, as a transformational tool for change, and a practice of learning how to tell our stories. So it's a really highlighting, or rather elevating, the social emotional intelligence of a young person, but really of all people who come into our community, to use poetry as a healing practice. So that's just a little bit more about that. And what we wanted to do today is we wanted to offer some of the poems we often use as, whether it be an introduction to our community, whether it be on a ritual retreat with us, or we Street Poets met this amazing poet in the middle of Mendocino, the woods, and he's no longer with us, but his poetry is very much alive, and which keeps his spirit alive in our community. And there's always a great invocation. So I wanted to share this with you. It's called Cargo, and it was for Melodoma Somé, who was also no longer here, but was an amazing healer while he was. And this poem is by Greg Kimura. So it's called Cargo. And it goes like this. You enter life a ship laden with meaning, purpose, and gifts to be delivered to this hungry world. And as much as the world needs your cargo, you need to give it away. Everything depends on this. But the world forgets its needs, and you forget your mission, and the ancestral maps used to guide you have become faded scrolls on the parchment of dead pharaohs. The cargo weighs you heavy the longer it is held. Spoilage becomes a risk. Your ship sputters from port to port, and at each you ask, is this the way? But the way cannot be found without knowing the cargo, and the cargo cannot be known without recognizing there is a way. And it is simply this: you have gifts. The world needs your gifts. You must deliver them. The world may not know it is starving, but the hungry know, and they will find you when you discover your cargo and start to give it away. Such a powerful piece. It still gives me chills, and I've read this for many, many years. And I think it really encompasses, the work that we try to put into the world, and how we try to show up for community, and for young people, and for anybody who's ready for this transformation within themselves. And we try to just be this mirror, this reflection, to not tell them who they are, but rather let them see the gift they have inside, to help them remember what they came in with, so that they can offer it in an entirely different way, so they can find healing through the practice of poetry, healing through the recognition that they do have gifts, right? And sometimes they lay right next to our wounds. And in order to access them, in order to reach them and honor them, we have to honor the story that comes with both. So that's just a little introduction, an invocation to street poets. And now I want to pass it to our artistic director, Barbara Fant. And she got some magic for you too, y'all. I hope you're ready.
Thanks so much, Frank. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here with you all. My name is Barbara Fant, and I am the new artistic director for Street Poets. So excited to be here with you all today. It's such an honor, and thank you so much for having us. Thank you to the Arts for Healing and Justice Network for inviting us to be a part of this as well. I'm going to go ahead and share a poem that we typically use in our workshops as well. It's called Credo, and it's by Anitra L. Freeman. We each have a wise and a passionate heart with a shell built around it to keep it from breaking, that keeps it from living. The spiritual path is breaking that shell and unfolding that heart. To love truly is not to love others more, or to love self more, or even to love God more, but to love life more. To love the life of the heart more than the life of the shell. The greatest act of love is to do what you fear to do, to say what you fear to say, to think what you fear to think, and to feel what you fear to feel. The greatest act of wisdom is to live without easy answers, or even without answers at all, in order to live with more heart. And that's a poem that, yeah, you can snap it up, you can clap it up, you can throw the hearts in the chat for those poems. Thank you so much. Yeah, this poem, I mean, Street Poets is really steeped in ancestral healing, indigenous practices. And we really believe that as we do this work in the world and we help others come into their own voices, that we're helping them to break that shell that's around them and to live more fully into who they are, to live fully in their purpose. And we believe that that's the work that you're doing too. As you're doing this work in the world, you're helping others heal. You're helping others break that shell around their lives and live more fully into the people that they're supposed to be in this world. So thank you for the work that you're doing. We want to offer that as a gift. And with that, I now want to toss it over to my colleague, George, who is going to give you all some incredible magic, to use the words of Frank Escamilla. All right, George, it's on you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me here. I have a short story. I'm a teaching artist with Street Poets, and I met them when I was 16 years old, when I was incarcerated. So I have a short story I want to share with you guys. So here it goes. It's still in draft form, but I think you guys will get the idea. It's called Monster. Monster was an 8-year-old little boy. I don't know for sure, but I believe he and his siblings and mother were from Arkansas. He was the oldest. They were from Hispanic descent. Monster was small and skinny. His mother met some gang members back in Arkansas. They were from Los Angeles and were passing through. They got to partying, and one thing led to another. His mom tagged along with them and brought all her kids and ended up in Los Angeles, hooked on crack. I met Monster through my youngest brother, who was around 12 at the time, and coincidentally was also hooked on crack. Crack is a product you get from powdered cocaine when you heat it up and mix it with baking soda. It turns from powder to a hard solid that you can then smoke out of a glass pipe. Crack is very addicting. My mother has always been a God-fearing woman, and though we come from very humble beginnings, there was always enough food for everyone who went to our house. This included a bunch of kids, our friends that came from similar backgrounds, who would sleep over or stop by to see what they can eat. We did the same things at other people's houses, and though I can say we were poor, I have never been denied a plate of food and at least a little piece of carpet in the hallway with a blanket to sleep in. Monster would come over at times. We would walk by his house where his mom was smoking crack with her friends. And though we were all kids, we kind of knew he was better off with us on the street than in that crack house. I was around 16 at the time. We were all part of the same gang, Monster too. I can remember one of these days when we passed by his house. Billy, another 12-year-old in a similar situation, called out to him, "Monster, Monster." He came rushing out the front black screen door. "What's up?" he said, all joyful. "Let's go." He looked back at his house, kind of went to believe his mother would run after him or show a bit of concern, but no one came after him. He turned to us and joined our group as we walked crossing the street toward our house. I remember Monster telling me, my mom, she's going to go to rehab soon. He mentioned the exact date, but I don't remember. I just remember it was a few weeks away. She's going to get cleaned up, and my brothers and I are going into a home, but she will get cleaned up and come get us all back. The way he was saying it to me was like he was affirming it, like this was going to happen, and I'll get my mom back and we'll have our family back. I don't know if he wanted me to say, yes, it would happen that way. Yes, you'll get your mom back. Yes, it's going to be okay. But I didn't. I knew that fairy tales like that just don't happen where I come from. I knew that kids that got into foster system probably never come out until they are 18. I knew that kicking crack is hard to do because I was also addicted to crack when I was younger, because I know what it feels like to want to get high, how your body turns on you and how your brain just tells you the right things to convince you to get high again. I didn't say anything. I just felt a deep hole in my chest of disappointment, of hurt. I felt empathy. I felt sorry. I felt sad. Monster later, Monster later stopped. Months later, I stopped seeing Monster around. I thought of him every time I passed by the duplex. I wondered if his mom was going to make it, if she was really going to get off drugs and get her kids back. I wish this for him. I wish this was true for him and his brothers. About a year later, I was walking in the Macy Pennies at Lakewood Mall. As I was walking through the clothing section, I bumped into Monster. As he was coming out of one of the aisles, I was excited. I said, Monster, what's up, fool? He looked at me, frightened and surprised. He turned around and ran back into the safety of a heavyweight white woman who I believe was his foster parent. His reaction toward me has always got me thinking, why would he run from me? Why? I still don't understand. The only thing that makes sense to me is that he was trying to be as good an 8-year-old or 9-year-old could be to get back home to his mother, to his brothers, to his family. I never ran into Monster again. After that, I really hope he was able to get back home, that his mother really got off drugs and got her family back. As I write this, the feeling I have in my chest is just undescribable. It's not a good feeling. This just doesn't feel good. If you are 8 years old and your life was full of terrible uncertainties, with pimps and drug dealers coming in and out of your house, if you witnessed and went through stuff and had no way to escape them, the only people you felt understood or welcomed by were gang member children who lived similar fates. What will your nickname be? The scariest thing you can imagine that will fend off all your fears. You will call yourself Monster. So that is an appreciation to the work you guys do. It's very moving to me. I started working with street poets when I was 16 years old, and street poets has impacted my life in incredible ways. And I know that sometimes doing social work is you have to make really, really hard choices. And I appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you for having us here. I'll pass it to Frank or Barbara.
Thank you, George. Thank you for that story. That I've never heard that story. It was amazing. And I think that's George, that practice of telling our stories, telling, the wounds that we've lived through, also is a practice in street poets where it acts as an invitation, where when we're capable of sharing our stories or our most deepest hurts, it unconsciously gives people permission to do the same thing. And a lot of the times that's where we try to meet people. Where we work in the probation system, we work in the prison system, we work in the school system, and we have to meet these young people on this level to be able to really create community, to really connect. And so thank you, George, for modeling that and for showing that. Yeah, and I don't know if we want to leave you with a little writing exercise, if you all want to take something home. So in that same fashion and in that same invitation, I want to give you a starter line. And of course, we'd love to hear it. If you want to send it to us and Street Poets Inc. on our Instagram, or if you want to send it to us on our emails, we'd love to. But take the line, if you knew me, you would know. If you knew me, you would know. And give yourself permission to write. Give yourself permission to tell your story. And in this way, honor it, right? Allow it to breathe and see where it takes you. Because it's important. We need your story in the world. We need everyone in here's story in the world. Because what we're trying to do is weave a blanket that's going to hold everyone, So thank you so much. We appreciate this time. Barbara, did you want to leave some final words?
I think you said it all. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, everyone. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your stories, all the stories of the people in your network. Really powerful to hear other people's stories. And I appreciate what you said, that when you give people permission, when you share your own story, you give people permission to share theirs as well. So looking forward to hearing what other people in our network come up with your prompt. I hope that others can give themselves permission to write and to share their story. And if anyone would like to share it in the chat, feel free. And put any comments you have for Street Poets in the chat too. Thank you again for being here. We have a couple questions that I wanted to just bring up. One was that wondering about how to get contacted or get in contact with you. So we'll put some contact info in the chat. Just wanted everybody to know that we'll set that in the chat for you. The other question is if we can get any copies of these poems. Do you have copies of these poems available somewhere that we can find them? I know we have your website, but are there other places we can find some copies of the stories and poems you shared today?
Both of these poems are available with a Google search. There's a really fun project with Greg Kimura's poem that's happening where they'll send you this amazing poster with the poem. So it can be found on Google, as well as Credo by Anitra Freeman can also be found on Google. I can drop them in the chat, but I think it'd be a little nicer for you all.
Yeah, maybe if you could just put the titles and the authors, like, so we can know the spelling in the chat, then we will we'll encourage everyone to Google it. And we may be able to find them as well and send them out with the rest of the materials we share today. So thank you. That would be great. Perfect. Yep, we've got them going in the chat. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate your energy and just being here and present in this space with us. So can't thank you enough for the time that you took to be here today. Thank you. Great. If you want to get in contact with Street Poets, we'll put the info in the chat. We'll also put the information for AHJN, which is the Arts for Healing and Justice Network. That's the larger network that supports a bunch of creative organizations just like Street Poets. So we'll put all that in the chat for everyone. Thank you again.